Alright guys, I want to do a update, just an update video, or just there's something that I found on, if you go back to my last video where I did this demo on this is a German made Ontario Mark III, and we sharpened on the stone. I did some demos. This one cut outstanding, is fine. I was sharpening the second one I got. I ordered two of them, so I ordered two of these from Germany. So I wanted to report something that I found, and this is where you're going to run into a problem getting your knife razor sharp. On this one, the plunge line, you guys, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on the camera, but the plunge line on this one is correct. You can see the plunge line is centered. So you got your plunge line right there. If that plunge line isn't centered, when you do your grinds, your secondary grinds, one's going to be more pronounced. It's going to have more centered. So you got your plunge line right there. If that plunge line isn't centered, when you do your grinds, your secondary grinds, one's going to be more pronounced. It's going to have more. It's going to have more material, more what you call the field on that secondary grind. On this side, you're going to have less when the plunge line is not centered correctly. So what happens is your whole blade edge is there, it's asymmetrical. So I'm going to have to take this into my shop. So we've got a plunge line deficiency in this one here. So it's something to look for if you order this. Now I looked at the Ontario one that's made by Ontario. Plunge line was centered, it's perfect. This one, on the German one, on the made in Germany, the plunge line is centered and perfect. So that's what I just wanted to point out. On my last demo, I did it with this knife. It's sharpened out, razor sharp. This thing is just badass. It's perfect. Well, the plunge line is centered perfect. So you got to check, and that's one of the, usually you know, I check for that, but I started sharpening on this one, and I'm having a real hard time getting this thing to slice paper and get razor sharp. Well, I checked the plunge line, and let me show you guys this. I use these real high-powered jeweler's glasses, so you can really get down and look at that blade, and you can tell. I just inspected with my jeweler's glasses, but you can see the plunge line on this one is just way off, and the plunge line on this one is correct. So when you order these, if you have, even on an Ontario, whoever was doing the grinds that day, maybe they had a bad day and one went out, you might have an Ontario knife that you're having a hard time getting a razor sharp edge on. Make sure you check that plunge line. If that plunge line is off, that's what the problem is. So that, like I said, this one's perfect on this made in Germany one. This one's made in Germany too. So what, I'm going to have to take this to my shop. I'm actually going to have to work this side a little bit more and get that plunge line over and get it centered up. Then we'll be able to get this, you know, they can be fixed and squared away, but they should, something like this shouldn't really pass inspection. They should have a guy, when I make my knives by hand and I'm doing these grinds, that's one thing that I always stay zeroed in, is making sure my plunge line is centered. It's very important, because once you end with the end product, when the end grinds, the primary grinds and secondary grinds, to get just a really outstanding functioning knife that's razor sharp, it's easy to sharpen, those plunge lines have to be correct. So that's your quality control. So just, it's something to be aware of. Just make sure your plunge lines are centered.